I didn't ever envision myself teaching what I teach. In the beginning, like if you rewind several years ago, I wanted to help all entrepreneurs with all things growing their business. I was like, had these grandiose, plans. But part of my why, and it still is a huge part of my why, is because my wife and I, we run our own nonprofit as well called Village Impact, where we build schools over in Kenya. And I had a moment for me as an entrepreneur that forever changed just my thought process around making money. And long story short is basically what I realized when I was standing in this field in Kenya and we're looking to build our first school. What I realized was the more money I make, the more impact I can have. And that was a huge pivotal moment for me because it unleashed a whole bunch of money guilt that I used to experience in my life. And ultimately what happened was I started to make a whole lot more money in my business. Now that guilt was gone. It was just like making money was a really honorable thing. And so my bigger why was I wanted to give that experience to more entrepreneurs. I wanted to help entrepreneurs make a lot more money so they had a lot more to give to the people and causes that they're passionate about. So that was like my big thing. But how I landed where I am now came from a friend and mentor of mine. And he said to me one day, we were in a mastermind together, and he said, Stu, like, you literally have decades of experience helping people specifically with membership sites. He's like, you've helped tens of thousands of people. Like, why don't you just focus in on that? And I remember, Linz, I had this like gut instinct, like, that's not all I am. Like, memberships isn't all I am. And my ego was just like raging, like, no, Stu, you want to help with everything. But once like I kind of quieted down the ego and just kind of sat with it for a moment, I realized he was right. And so ultimately what happened was I narrowed my focus down to helping specifically business owners generate more recurring revenue through membership sites. And the moment I did that, it was just like this amazing wave of people started coming into my life because now I was known for something specific, and it was very easy for people to understand what I did. It was very easy for people to refer me to others, and it just like took on a whole, bunch of momentum. And so as soon as I narrowed in on this and I got clear on like how I was going to teach and what I was going to teach and how I was going to serve and what the outcome was, for me, the outcome is like helping generate more recurring revenue. It just started to snowball. And so now I've never been more excited about my business. I've never been more excited about like what we get to share. And most importantly, I've never been more excited about the progress that our students are making and the difference and the impact it's having in their lives. And so now I'm connected on a way deeper level than I ever was before because it's the ripple effect. Like when we hear stories of people in our community like Anna Saucier, who, she helps women who aren't able to get pregnant. And because of her membership site, she's serving like a whole lot more people than she ever could one-on-one. Or I hear of like Leslie Vernick, who helps women who are in troubled relationships and helping not only sometimes get out of those relationships or repair those relationships. Or I hear stories of like Dana Abraham, who works with parents who've got troubled kids. Like all of these stories, like when you think about like what these membership sites are doing and the people that they're helping. And that's what fires me up. It's that ripple effect. And so the more I can help people launch successful memberships, the more they're helping their audiences in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, I think from a like teaching perspective, when I think about getting out of our own way and just like letting what we know come through it when people are asking for it specifically, right? And so then people are like, no, teach us this specifically, please. And you're like, but I know all these other things. It's like, no, we need to learn this from you because of who you are and what you represent. And that's when the wildfire really takes off and that true ripple effect and impact really takes off. And then you get to be centered, right? And when Stu is centered, teaching what he knows, then we all benefit from it. And I think that's a cool thing that I see in watching you just share what you've learned over, how many membership sites were you a part of with Wishlist? Like you've watched, now and then your community as well.
Yeah. So with Wishlist, we had helped over 70,000 online communities and membership sites. And yeah, so there's it makes sense in hindsight,
Yeah.
but before, my friend and mentor Reed, kind of shared that with me, I was kind of oblivious to it, and maybe not oblivious to it, but it's almost like I was, my ego was getting in the way. And the interesting part about it is like, when I take a step back and look at, what's happened over the last 3-4 years, do I still teach people things outside of membership sites? Absolutely. But it's like, on the front end, I am known for something very specific, and that is what brings people into my world. And once they're into my world, now I can open them up to all kinds of other stuff. So it was just really like a rearranging in my brain, how I could serve people and help them in all kinds of different ways. But ultimately, on the front end, I want to be known for something very specific. And then, of course, once they're in my world, I can help them in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, the parallel I'm hearing right now too is like, as a college professor, people had to sign up for my Soch 1 class, right? So people have to sign up for something, but then what they get on the other side of that is usually something bigger, and is more and is greater. And we'll definitely dive into that too as we talk about the decisions you made around your course, because it is pretty fantastic what you're doing. So let's get into the big question that I'm leading with for this kind of conversation is a question I get asked a lot, and I know you get asked a lot, having been in your circle now for the last couple of years. I mean, I bought that first round, so I've been in Tribe since August 2016.
You're an OG.
I'm
Tribe
OG. I'm a Tribe OG. And so, having been in that long, I've seen a lot of changes that you guys have made. But I've also witnessed a lot of people ask a lot of the same questions, which happens in many classrooms. So I'd love for you to share with us what you think like the key differences are between like membership sites and courses, and how you kind of articulate that.
Well, I think the easiest distinction I can help make for people is courses teach a lot of material and they go deep in a short period of time. Membership sites are about really holding people's hands and supporting them in the implementation of what they have learned. So in a course, people are going to learn a lot in a short period of time, but they're not necessarily going to have the time or the bandwidth to be able to implement it. And so what happens at the end of a course is now they're kind of like left on their own to kind of just go and implement
do it.
Yeah, okay, you've got everything, so there you go. All right, off you go. And that's kind of where a membership kind of then picks up the baton, if you will. And a membership site is all about just supporting people in the implementation of it. So there are two different types of membership sites. Like there's a front-end membership site and there's a back-end membership site. In this scenario, we're talking about a back-end membership. So a front-end would be the course and a back-end would be the membership. But the experience in terms of what we are helping people do is the exact same. We're teaching the exact same. The only difference is a course is teaching them what to do, and a membership site is supporting them in actually doing it.
I love that. And I know have you seen ones where the membership is on the front end of a course as well? And what would you say would be the two different setups of that?
Yeah, so absolutely. And the benefit to that is when a membership site's on the front end, those people who are a part of that membership are the best qualified people to go through your course, because what they want to do is once they are in the membership is on the front end is really like like a slow cooker. It's like a way to like slowly, help people through the material, learn the material. But some people, they just want to get it quick. They just want to go download it fast. They want to, be able to learn things as quickly as possible. And that's where a course comes into play. So, there's the course and the membership are like the yin and the yang. They go together and they work together either on the front end or on the back end. But the bottom line is that they are two different experiences. A course goes deep fast. A membership site supports people in implementing over time.
I love that. And I think that helps. I think it helps seeing it. There's definitely hybrid versions and there's ways to over deliver in courses, which will definitely tie into with how you set up your business. But I do think from a perspective of someone who loves helping lots of people, and maybe at least for me and most people that follow me, like how I have a business where I'm teaching and I'm not a lot about my deliverable of a product or a client or whatever. And so I think from a teaching perspective, if I want to show up and teach in my community, I want to build an education-based business. And so when we think about what a learner's journey might look like, there is the textbook that we can hand them. And a lot of times that's how I kind of frame how most info products are online, is like a textbook, right? And so like, here's a bunch of videos, here's a bunch of worksheets, like good luck. And like, maybe I'll answer an email sometimes. And then there are people like you and me who are really, really all about creating a learning experience, like a true course in every sense of the word from what I remember in my professor days. And so I think it is hard for people to distinguish because there is a lot of overlap. And I think what I would say to people, and I'm curious your thoughts on this too, like you can put aspects in a course that feels membershipy if that feels good to you. Like, and it's all about like how we want to show up for our students and what feels really good in that way. And I think there's many ways that membership sites and courses can fit in your business. It's not really an either or, but it's mostly a both and an and maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Well, if you've got one, you absolutely should have the other. Like for, I mean, bottom line is like, my guess is that if your audience, people have created courses or thinking about courses. And if you've created a course, you know you've experienced this. When you get toward the end of the last module, you start getting questions like, wait, what's going to happen? Like the course is about to end. Like, are we still going to have
can we
like
be friends?
Like, is this all closing down? Like, what's going to happen to the community? What am I going to do if I got questions? Like all the people start panicking, right? And it's a good thing because what you've done is you've created this environment during your course experience that there's like trust and that comfort and so forth. And people start to get a little panicky toward the end because they're like, well, you're going to, what's going to happen to this, bubble that we are in? And if you're getting those questions, it's like the perfect segue to a membership site because it's like, look, we've had such an amazing experience during these 6 weeks, 8 weeks, however long the course is. And what I like to do is I like to highlight, like, look at all of the progress that we have made as a group during this time. And I'll show like screenshots of people's making the progress. And I'll say, and this has only happened in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Imagine what would be possible if we were together, not 6 weeks, but all year long. And people are like, yes, that would be amazing. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So that's why you should come join us and you go into and talk about the membership. But the bottom line is they absolutely go together. This is not an either and. It is a thing. It's like a marriage. It's like peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and chocolate, which ones you like. They go together. And that's why, like, if you don't have them, I actually think you're doing a disservice to your people because the reality of it is like we said, we jokingly said, like the course ends and we're kind of like, okay, like you're on your own. But listen, how many people actually take that material when they're on their own and are able to work through it? Very few. We know this. So this is why like a membership site is so beautiful on the back end and, vice versa. There are so many people who are going to be coming, if a membership's on the front end, who are going to want to go deep fast. Like even in our courses, like I'm sure your course creators can relate. We'll have people come in on the first module and they're like, hey, I'm a fast learner. I just want to download everything right now. Like, can you just give me everything right now? Like there are those people. And same is true. Like if somebody's coming in on a membership site that's on the front end, there are those people that say, I just want to go deep fast. Like, can you just give me everything? And that's when, if we didn't have a course, we wouldn't be able to send them to something. But if we do have a course, we say, absolutely. You sound like you would best be suited to go through our course experience. So they absolutely go together. They're like yin and the yang, the peanut butter and the chocolate, peanut butter and
jelly and
whatever.
Chocolate. Whatever you put peanut butter on. Maybe it's everything. I don't know. No judgment.
Whatever your heart desires.
We had a good question come in, actually. Helen is asking that the problem as a teacher is that I think of teaching as having a goal and a series of learning outcomes, but membership sites seem a bit open-ended with no end in sight. And I love this question. And I know Stu has an answer for this because this is a really core thing that also just made me love Stu's work in the world is because it was from a very teacher-centered place. So how do you set up a membership site so a student sees how they're making progress in a course or in the membership? Sorry.
Yeah, well, to me, this applies to a course and or a membership. It's the same thing, and it's the backbone. It's something that we call a success path. And the reality of it is that when you're teaching anything, it could be guitar, it could be relationships, it could be business, it could be anything. People are going to come in at different stages. And what I mean by that is, like, I want you to imagine like this, like two ends of the screen here. Well, if you're looking at my hands, two ends of the screen. And I'm trying to think here, is this, yeah, this would be the start side. Okay. So let's envision that people are starting here and they want to progress to over here. So this is where they are. This is where they want to be. And so what we need to do is we need to create a journey or a success path of how to go from where they are to where they want to be. And that normally breaks down into different stages. Now, I like 5 stages, but it could be as few as 3 or as maximum 7. If you get more than 7, you're going to get, it's too many. So I like the sweet spot of 5. So bottom line is that, like, what we are helping people do is progress from one stage to the next. And, you know, the reality of it is that people are not going to make that progression in a short period of time, or very seldom do they make that progression in a short period of time. And that's where a membership comes into play, is that we're helping people over time. And the beauty about breaking it down into these stages and the overarching success path is it helps bring focus for people. Because listen, when we come into learning something new, there's a lot coming at us, a lot of information, a lot of new terms, terminology, a lot of new things to do. And it can, like, overwhelm people, and then they, like, freeze and they don't do anything because they think they've got to learn everything in order to make that first step forward. And this is why I love breaking it down into a success path, because what it does is it narrows the focus down to, look, forget about everything else. If you're at this stage, here are the few things that you need to focus on right now. And so what that does is it lifts a huge weight off of your people's shoulders, because now they're like, oh, thank goodness, like, I don't have to learn everything right now. Okay, these few steps, this is all I got to focus on. And they just focus on those things, and it feels more manageable, and it is more manageable. And so they start implementing it. And because they start implementing it, they start making forward progress. They start creating momentum for themselves. And so what happens is the more momentum they have, the faster they end up, you know, progressing through the whole journey. And it's because it's been broken down into stages. It's been broken down into the few things they need to focus on right now, all of which is leading them through that journey of going from where they are to where they want to be.
Yep. They have to have markers or signposts in some way. And I think from, like, an adult learning perspective, as adults, like, we have to reflect and say, like, where am I right now? Like, what have I gained from this? And I think it does relate to, like, people falling out of a membership as well. I think some of the biggest mistakes, I don't know if some of you guys watching have ever been a membership site that you're just like, I don't know what to do. I haven't gotten anything out of this. And, like, I need to leave because I'm not doing anything. And that tends to be because it's missing this important feature of really actually being a teacher and saying, where are my students at? And, like, how can I help them at these various stages and create content around these stages? Yeah.
And I think about my wife. Like, my wife was a teacher for 10 years. And in her class, she would have modified lesson plans based on where kids are at. You know, so it's the same thing. And, like, what we're doing is when people come into our classroom, we are helping them identify what stage they are at and helping bring clarity in terms of, this is what is most important for you right now to focus on. That's just like when we can give our students the gift of clarity, that is the greatest gift we can give them, because they're able to make so much more progress when they're clear. And that comes from having a success path. Now, there's other benefits to this as well. Lindsay, do you want me to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Well, okay. So from a membership standpoint, let me just, you know, put all the cards on the table. The money in a membership site is made from keeping people happy. There are 2 ways to really keep people happy. Number 1 is that they're making progress. They're getting a result. If people are getting a result, there is no reason why they would cancel. Because, listen, they're continuing to move forward. They're continuing to make progress. But here's the little gotcha. If you don't have a success path, you have no measuring stick to be able to remind them of the progress they're making. And so sometimes I've even seen this, like with membership site owners that we've worked with, their members are making progress, but their members were still leaving after a certain period of time. And people are saying to me, like, well, how is that happening? But what's happening is they don't have a success path. And because of that, the members are associating their progress to something outside of the membership.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is for us, it becomes an anchor, becomes a measuring stick for us to be able to help them see the progress they're making and remind them of the reasons that they have been making the progress is based on what they've been learning with us. So that's a huge thing is, people will stay because of the progress. Number two is people will stay because of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the support and the interaction and the camaraderie and there's so many things that we can do within a course experience specifically and within a membership experience where we gamify it, where we create build in all kind of community connections. I was talking the other day that one of the things that I see as the future for membership sites and, heck, for courses too, is combining the online and the offline together.
Yes.
I mean, Linz, like you and I have hung out a whole bunch of times. We used to hang out a lot, which was amazing. And so we built like this relationship where, we're friends, we know each other, there's deeper connections. But if you think about in our circles, like it's that in-person connection that deepens those relationships. And it's not only deepening the relationship between you, the teacher, and the students, but it's also deepening the relationships between the students themselves.
Yes.
And when that happens, my goodness, my friends, like people will not leave because one of the things I've been talking about for years is they come for the content, they stay for the community. So bottom line is that like when we think about why people stay, it's two reasons. One, progress. If people are making progress, they're not going to leave. And number two is community. If people are feeling loved by you, if they're feeling loved by others, if they've got those deep relationships, they're not going to leave. We've never heard of anybody canceling saying, I'm making too much progress, or I'm canceling because I feel too loved. People don't cancel for those reasons. So it brings clarity in terms of where our focus should be, which is helping people make progress. That's the highest importance. And number two, helping create community so they feel loved and wanted. And you do those two things well, people won't ever leave.
I love that. And there's so much in that I'm just like, yes, because part of me is recognizing that the connection between other students is really important. And I don't think a lot of course creators, and this is me putting my course creator hat on, think about it. They just think it's about the relationship to their students. And it's like, yeah, that's also really important and you should show up for them. But like the community that you create between other students, like that's where a lot of learning happens too. And you have to be intentional behind that. So live in-person things is a great way to do that. Having events, creating these, I went to your workshop recently up in LA, and the accountability groups from your membership, your implementation membership after Tribe, they were like taking pictures with you because they wanted to show their like accountability partners. And I was like, oh yeah, this is big.
and what's cool about it is like, it takes a pressure off of you, the teacher.
Yes.
Because like you don't have to come up with all the answers at that point. You're not the only point of knowledge. And this is where I'm just going to put it straight out. This is where we kind of have to challenge ourselves because it's the ego. The ego in us wants us to be the only point of knowledge. Like we think that we're the teacher. We're the ones that, contain all the wisdom. But the reality of it is like if you can cultivate a community, the wisdom of the group is so much bigger, so much better, so much more rich that it creates a way better experience for everybody. And I'll just tell you, from a teaching perspective, it removes a huge weight off of your shoulders because you don't have to have all the answers.
Yep. And that's like one of the things when I learned that as a college professor, like they could Google on their phone while I'm lecturing. So that changed it. Like, I'm pretty sure Wikipedia is smarter than me, no matter how much school I go to. Right. And once I let that go and realize that like, okay, so I don't have all the answers, the internet, what can I do? And I would tell my students like, how do I make the best out of the time that we have together as we're sitting in this room? We all decided to show up. Right? What does it look like? And to me, it was engagement. How do I make it not about me lecturing? And how do I make it about us processing the world around us? And that was obviously because of my discipline, but like for many other ways too. And so when you realize this as a teacher, that it's not about you, that actually the subject is the center and you actually stand next to your students in many ways. You're the guide, you know a little bit more than them, but you stand next to each other and you're playing with whatever the subject matter is. That totally changes the shape of a classroom. It's not this like hierarchical thing, and it changes relationships as well.
Let me give you one little example for, whether you got an online course or you have a membership site that can really help in this regard. We've talked about like creating offline events, and listen, I've already said, I believe that's one of the big keys moving forward. But even in an online experience, what are some little things you can do? Well, again, if a question is asked in your course or in your community, you may know the answer, which is awesome. But if you know that some of your students know the answer, or perhaps they've had an experience that could, enlighten the discussion, instead of just responding yourself, tag them. Say, you know what? This is a great question. I know Sarah has some experience in this. Let's find out what she would say and tag her. And what happens now is let's say Jimmy asked the question. Now Sarah's involved, and now you're starting to build these connections. And so it's like this dynamic of being able to support the group, facilitate the group, and also tap into the relationships of the group and the experience of the group. And that's when everybody wins.
This is also how you save yourself from burnout, because if you're holding the weight of the success of every student in your course, rather than dispersing it between the community and the experience and the journey that they're on as a student, then you're not like burning yourself out. And I know that I see that as well in a lot of teacher and membership site kind of people, where they almost overgive of themselves. And it's related to what we're talking about, where they feel like they're the only one that can help everyone. And we all know that that's not true. If we really step back, we know that that's not true. And our community, they show up for each other when you create a great space that does exactly what you're saying.
Totally. And it's like, listen, take pride in the materials we create from a teaching perspective, the frameworks that we create, and then take pride in people being able to use them and teach them without us being involved.
Yep, exactly.
That's where the real magic happens,
It's true.
This is really, it's a shift. And, I struggled with this for a long time, Lindsay. I used to think that I was the only source of information and yada, yada, yada. It was a story I was telling myself. And once I kind of got beyond myself and realized, like, this is not the Stu show. This is like, it starts with, the frameworks that we teach, but there is so much wisdom in our community, and really celebrating that and honoring that and getting excited about that. And that's when everything just begins to take on a whole new level.
Yeah, I love it. So we definitely have had some questions coming in. I know we went on some rants there, but I think it's good stuff. Someone was talking about, Misha's asking about transitioning her audience from a brick and mortar. So kind of actually the opposite. Would you start them with a membership site for smaller and easier to consume content, or would you start with a course? I think that's the interesting question that lots of people think about, like, what should they start with? What are your thoughts on that? Or are there some business type questions you can ask yourself as it relates to which one is the right first step?
Well, without knowing too much about, is it Misha?
Misha, yeah. Misha.
Without knowing too much about Misha's brick and mortar store, there are lots of examples, by the way, of bricks and mortar businesses that have incorporated membership sites. Just as an example, like literally across the road from us is a car wash that started up just over a year ago. And I remember when the guys came into the office, because they were like, "Oh, have you got your membership yet?" And I said, "Membership?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "The car wash, the new car wash. It's a membership." I'm like, "Serious?" They're like, "Yeah." So I go over, and check it out. And of course, you can go through the car wash one time for $10, or you can join the membership site for $12 a month, and you can go through an unlimited number of times. So it's like a super no-brainer offer. So I'm like, of course I got a membership. And when I was signing up, I'm asking the girl behind the counter, I said to her, I'm like, how many people have signed up over the last month and a half? And she's like, "Oh, we're off to a pretty good start. There's over 3,000 people. I was like, "What?" I'm like, 3,000 people? That's crazy. Well, fast forward, my car is spick and span because it's across the road from us. I'm going in there all the time. And Amy, my wife, was like, "Look, can you wash my car? Because my car's looking amazing. Mine's looking grubby." And I'm like, "Yeah, but baby, so that means I'm going to have to go get like another membership." And she's like, "Well, go and get another membership." So I bring her car down. I go to get another membership. I'm asking the girl behind the counter again. This is about a month afterwards. I said, "So how many members are you up to now?" She's like, "We're over 4,500. I'm like, 4,500. Now time out. Let's just think about that for a second, because there's another car wash like about a minute down the road. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you it is never, ever anywhere near as busy as the one right here. Why? because the one down the road is hoping that their customers are going to come back, hoping that they'll go to that car wash again. Whereas the one right across our office, they know for sure that 4,500 customers are going to pay them next month. And this is the difference. And whether you've got a product-based business, a service-based business, a knowledge-based business, or community-based business, it does not matter. Memberships are here, and there's so many examples of this. Now, to come all the way back to your, one of the questions that you asked there, which was like, which one do I know to start with first? Is it the course or is it the membership? Can I just be frank in this, Linz?
Please.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, pick one. Pick one avenue. Because here's the thing. People get all their knickers in a twist, thinking about like, do I do the membership or do I do the course? Is it course or is it membership or course? It doesn't matter. Pick one and get going. Because the reality of it is, in your mind, you should be thinking about long-term, it's going to be both. So it doesn't matter which one you start with.
Yep.
Now, the only distinction I would make is if you plan your membership to be a back-end membership versus a front-end membership. If it's a back-end membership, then obviously you got to start with the course. And then the membership comes second. But if that's not a distinction, if it's like, if you're battling between a front-end membership or a course, it doesn't matter. Do whatever is going to be easiest to get off the ground, and you can always add the second one afterwards.
I love it. And, if I could say anything, it's like, take away this one thing from this conversation is like, you just need to take a step forward, and you can add, I'm the course creator, Stu's the membership guy. And we're pretty much saying just like pick one, but we'll work together and we're on your team and we're helping your students. And that there's so much clarity in taking action. There are people that I know that have had membership sites. There's a woman who had a course that she's turning into a membership site. That totally works. That's happened to a couple people I know. I've seen people go the opposite. On my membership site, I decided to become a course. That's all great. Like I think when it comes from our perspective, like as business owners, we can get all like, it has to be the right move. Right. Sometimes we don't know what the right move is, and there's just a move. And I always like to point people to what feels easiest. And you could argue for either side. The way I teach building courses is actually really simple and removes all the overwhelm and makes you just show up and teach. That can feel really easy to people. But you know what's really easy about creating a membership site? Technically, you only need like a month of content to help take care of people, especially because remember, it's not content overload. You're not planning an entire course. You're just planning a couple trainings, and we're not going to get into a whole bunch of stuff around like types of memberships. I did want to drop, I think Derek dropped the guide. Stu has a guide where it's the biggest, most amazing, ultimate guide that I've ever seen on membership sites. And he goes in the different types. So if this is like piquing your curiosity, please download it. But he does talk about different types of deliverables that you can give your students. And a membership site, while I've heard, both sides. One side says it feels like you're always creating content, and I don't believe that that's entirely true either. No. But one of the easy things, I think, from the same perspective I teach as a course creator is what is a little win you could get them this month? Because you're not planning a course. You're not cramming a bunch of content into 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 modules. It's like usually one win. What is the theme that your people care about, and how can you give them a win? That could actually feel pretty easy to complete from a teaching perspective.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like with a membership site, you can absolutely get started in a very short, simple way. And I encourage it, because here's the reality. One of the differences between a membership site and a course is a membership site is very fluid, meaning you're learning a lot of what you need to deliver based on your members' needs. Whereas with a course, it's almost like a set curriculum, right? So once you've created the curriculum, you may change it from year to year, but like once you've got that curriculum set, you're likely not going to be changing it midstream. But with a membership site, you're adapting, you're molding, you're changing based on your members' needs. So it is a little bit in that sense easier to get going. But one thing that I think is really important is that you'd hit the nail on the head. No matter what you are thinking about, go with what is easy for me to get moving forward. I'm more interested in people moving forward. Whether that's a course, whether that's a membership site, It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what are we helping people do? We're helping them make progress from where they are to where they want to be. And all they are just two different modalities. We talked about the difference between them. They go hand in hand together, whether it's the peanut butter and chocolate or jelly, doesn't matter. Listen, they're together. And so just know that, like, long term, it's not one or the other, it's both. Now, I do want to give you a good example of just keeping it really simple. And that's our mutual friend, Jamie Swanson.
Yes.
So Jamie used to have a membership site that taught photographers all things about growing their photography business. It was big. And because it was so big, it felt really heavy for her and for her students. The amazing part about Jamie's story is she made a real conscious pivot where she went from teaching all photographers all things about growing their business to teaching photographers how to become a personal brand photographer because of the boom of those of us online who are using high quality images in our social feeds. She's like, look, this is a massive opportunity for photographers to become known as a personal brand photographer, but there was nobody teaching it. So what she did was she created a course first, then she created a membership site on the back end because of all the reasons we talked about. People were asking, like, what's next? And the deliverable on the back end is so simple, Lindsay. Because all she does is she shows these photographers how to find one more recurring client each month. That's it. She's not teaching them everything about growing a business, which feels heavy. She's showing them one strategy to find one more recurring client per month. And the crazy part about this is that it's way less work. So it's way easier for her to deliver. And her members are making way more progress because they're not getting overwhelmed by the sheer volume of content. They have a very specific focus and they're making way more progress and getting better results. So listen, at the end of the day, it's not about the volume of content. People are not buying lots and lots of information. They don't want lots and lots of information. They want the right information that's going to help them make progress. And sometimes, and more often than not, that means less is best. Because it's not about the volume of information, it's about the speed of implementation. And so once you make that shift in your brain, that's when you start asking yourself different questions. How could I make this more simple? How could I make this easy? How could I help my students get better results? And when your brain is centered on that, that's when things really take off for them and for you.
Yeah, I love that. And it segues actually into kind of my last question, thinking about what you've done with Tribe. And I just like watching you and, you have thousands of students and they feel really seen in your course. And that's something I talk a lot about because there's a lot of people that are selling courses out there where the teacher rarely shows up. They're too busy, they're fancy, or whatever judgments we can place on them, right? But like you always, right from the beginning, were like by our side, helping us in every way, shape, or form in Tribe. And I would love to hear a little bit about your teaching philosophy. I think just so everyone watching, knows, if you don't come from like the teaching world, ask Amy that question. I'd love to hear what she has to say too. It's definitely a question that gets asked in interviews, right? We all don't have the same one and we don't have to. Like, we don't need to copy Stu's teaching philosophy, but I do want to hear from him how he shows up for Tribe and how he set it up. And I know you've made some really cool changes this year as well. Like, where does that come from? What do you believe about teaching and learning that makes Tribe what it is?
Well, it's interesting. It's like, I don't know whether it's a teaching philosophy or a business philosophy, but
it's both, probably.
Probably. Yeah. So we have this thing we call the circle of awesomeness. So for us, this is kind of like something that as a company that we just, we believe in. And essentially what it means is that, like, once a sale is made or once somebody joins our course or our program, the entire focus of what we do as a company and through that experience is to help people get a result. So when we're talking about that success path, it's about helping move people through that success path. Now, that can mean like the big wins, like the Patty Palmers who, don't have a membership site. She launches a membership site and within a year has over 2,500.
Ranking it in.
Has over 6,000 members, like that, by the way, for all the teachers listening, Patty is an art teacher delivering lesson plans and is helping other art teachers around the world. So 6,000 members, enough said. But those are the big wins. And then there's the little wins like Ginger. We had one of our tribe meetups in Nashville earlier this year. And one of the things that she said at the end of the day, she raised her hand. We had a Q&A. She raised her hand. We're about to go. And she's like, I just have one more question. I hope this is okay. And I'm like, Ginger, of course. Like, this what this is for? Like, ask. She's like, well, I just don't know what I should do right now with where I am. And I said, okay. I said, well, let's talk about this. Tell me where are you at? I said, where on the success path do you think you are? Interesting how I always come back to that. And she's like, well, I'm right at the very beginning of my success path. And I said, okay, great. I said, do you have an audience yet? She's like, not really. I said, okay, given that, what do you think you should be doing first to begin growing that audience? She's like, well, I suppose, one of the things I could do is a Facebook Live. And I'm like, yes, oh, great. Okay, let's start there. I'm like, Ginger, let's start there. I said, so if a Facebook Live was the next right step, what would you need to do to prepare for that Facebook Live? She's like, oh, I guess I would need to figure out like what I was going to talk about. I said, perfect. Now I have a framework that I use for a Facebook Live, a 5-part framework, and which is basically like hook, story, teaching points, call to action, summary. So those are the 5 points. So I literally took out a flip chart and I said, okay, Ginger, let's just walk through this. So I asked her a bit about her market, and her market was she helps, she's an interior designer. So she helps women create warm, beautiful homes. And I said, perfect. I said, so, I said, what's like one of the, a problem that your market typically faces? And she gave me a problem. I don't recall what it was now, but long story short, it didn't matter. I don't need to remember it. This is Ginger. So we map it out on the flip chart. We literally, just those 5 points and just making bullets. And I said, okay, awesome. Ginger, I said, you got everything you need to do a Facebook Live. I said, do you want to give me your phone? And she's like, what, why? I said, because we're going to do it right here, right now. She's like, no, I can't. No, I'm not ready. I said, Ginger, you have everything you need right here on this flip chart. You can do this. And there was like this buzz and this energy in the room. And so she gave me her phone, and I literally just entered in like the hook that we had gone as the title of the Facebook Live. I'm like, okay, Ginger. I said, worst case scenario, you just literally read what we wrote on this flip chart. She's like, okay. So we go live, and, admittedly, she was a little bit nervous in the beginning. Like, she hadn't done this before, but she got into it. And of course she knew the material because, this was her thing. So she gets going and she's into it finally. And then by the end, like, we wrap it up, and she's just like, oh my gosh, she's like, this is amazing. And she was like high five. Everyone's like cheering. And then the crazy part is that Facebook Live in the first 24 hours had 600 views.
Nice.
In the first week had over 3,000 views. But more importantly, for Ginger, it was like that lead domino. It was like that first thing, that first big step. And that created momentum for her because she went on then to start doing Facebook Lives every single day. Now, I share this story with you because bottom line is that, like, when I think of results, I'm not just thinking about the big wins. Those are important, but so are all the other wins in between because your people can relate to them. And so when I think about our business and our teaching philosophy, like, it's all about results, the big wins, the little wins, and everything in between. And so when we are crafting our experience, our course experience, it's all about how do we help move people through the material so that they implement it. Because we know if they implement it, they're going to get results. Like, it is proven. We have thousands of success stories in all kinds of different markets. So it's not, does the material work? It works. It's just a matter of, like, how do we help people implement it easier and faster? So we obsess over this because the reason is this is where the circle of awesomeness comes. First starts with the sale. Second thing is all about results. Because if we get a result, then at the bottom, we have a story. And the stories are the most valuable asset that you have in your business. Because then if you share that story, then it's going to help you generate more sales. And so this is why it's like the whole circle of awesomeness.
Yep.
It comes back to that anchor point. If we don't get people results, we don't have stories, and we have nothing to share, and then we're really pushing boulders up a hill. But the reason that we gain so much momentum in our business and is because we obsess over the stories. And I could share with you a ton of stories. Like, I can tell you about Tamara Bennett. Tamara Bennett, she's in the art space, and she has a membership site that is in a tiny niche, teaching people how to paint decorative door hangers.
No.
Decorative door hangers, Lindsay. Like, this is crazy. The crazy part about it is she just held an event literally about a month ago with hundreds of her members at this event. I didn't even know this was a thing. But there are all kinds of people. Or I could tell you about the story of, like, Tara Walsh. So Tara Walsh has got a beautiful story because, she was feeling a lot of tension in her life because her husband was in the Army and he was suffering from PTSD.
Mm.
And she knew she had to get him some help. But that would mean he would have to go and live in another house, therefore doubling her monthly expenses. So she's just like, how do I do this? So long story short, she launched her membership site, and in the beginning it was $2,000 a month, and then over this last year went to $13,000 a month, and then $30,000 a month. And the crazy part about it is it's a membership site for lashpreneurs.
Yep.
What? I didn't even know these markets exist. But now, are her and her husband out of the woods yet? No, they're not. But she's had that stress completely removed from her shoulders, allowing herself and her family to be able to get her husband the help that he needs and to begin getting their family off to the races. Or I could tell you the story of Heidi Easley. Heidi Easley's in the art space. So she, for years, used to paint surfboards. And she, at one point, painted over 1,000 surfboards in 3 months. Like,
wow.
Like, how the heck that's even possible? But the bottom line
is,
I know, right?
Like math in my head, like 3 a day at least.
Yeah, she's just cranking on them. And that was her whole business. Like, the only way that she knew how to make money was to put in time, to work. And so when she finally made the transition to her membership site, it's made a massive difference. She's no longer, painting a bajillion surfboards a day. Now she is teaching people specifically in the art space. Or I could tell you about Karen Cinnamon. Karen has a membership site helping Jewish brides. Not just brides, but Jewish brides. And I didn't know this, but there's a whole bunch of complications that arise when it comes to, preparing for a Jewish wedding, especially if it's like, if the Jewish bride is marrying somebody who's not Jewish or vice versa. So she helps brides navigate that trail. Or I could tell you about like Levi, our mutual friend Levi.
Yeah.
He's got a guitar membership site, and it's been amazing to watch what's happened here. And the guitar membership site has grown now to over 6,000 members. But the thing that I love about Levi is it's not just about teaching people guitar. Like his primary market that he's really centered on and focused on are like retired vets. And he's done this beautiful thing of starting to do these offline jam sessions where they get like hundreds of their members together, and they're all like on stage jamming together. Like, it is amazing to watch what he's doing. Bottom line is, like, we have hundreds and hundreds of these stories. In fact, we started a whole podcast because we had so many that we wanted to tell them. And so every single week we tell them on the It's a Tribe Thing podcast. When you've got the stories, you have the most incredible marketing asset you can ever have in your business. And so when I think about our teaching philosophy, it's both a teaching philosophy and a business philosophy, which is we do everything in our power to help create and craft an experience that gets people results, that helps them make progress. Because if we do that, it fuels everything else in our business. So that dictates a lot of, how we structure things. That dictates a lot of where we invest our time and where we invest our energy and where we invest our money. But at the end of the day, it's all about results and progress.
And I think what the cool thing is, when you focus on something like that as a business owner, you get to show up, I think, in a different way. And I think it's more human. It's like the more human side of marketing. If you really think about the people that are investing in your membership site and in your course, and recognizing that they're at different stages. Someone said, basically related it to meeting your students where they're at. That's what you're doing by recognizing and acknowledging what stage they're on and saying, I see you at this stage. Like, sure, you're not Patty Palmer yet, but like, I can help you at this stage because I know I laid out these stages and I know exactly what you're going through, what you're thinking, feeling, and what you need to do to get to the next stage, which is so key.
Preach it, girl. That's exactly
I learned that from you. Think, feel, do for the stages. That's good.
Yes.
Well, this has been so fun, and I could talk to you about teaching and marketing all day. And like, you kind of represent, like, I think it took me the last year or so to realize that teaching is selling, and selling is teaching. And like, there's something about the relationship between what we just talked about, like marketing and results and, helping people. And that's what we're here to do, to serve. Like what most educators want to do is just serve. And you're showing us like how possible that is from a very genuine place, like a genuine place of, I just want people to get results. Like, that's why I do what I do. And that, I mean, it sells itself all day long, right?
Well, listen, I don't know if anybody else listening has ever felt this, but I used to feel really awkward when it came to selling.
Yep.
Like, you know, we're totally comfortable teaching and we could teach all day. We've got lots of energy. And then we get to selling and it's like, you know, like we're kind of like this stiff board and we're like, awkward. Well, here's the thing that got me over the hump, which was like, I'm not selling. I'm not selling. I'm not trying to convince somebody of anything. I'm not trying to manipulate anybody or anything of that or persuade any. All I do is I just share stories. And I share stories of people just like those in my audience.
Yep. On
all ends of the success path. I share stories of people who are the big successes and who do have the big membership sites, like, you know, the Patty Palmers, like the Levi Cachulas. But I also share stories of people just like Ginger, who did her first Facebook Live, because people who are at the very early stages, they can relate to that fear of like, don't know what to do. Like, my first Facebook Live. And then I share stories of everybody in between. And the reason is because when I share those stories, it creates a belief in my audience of what is possible. Yep. And bottom line is, like, when people are seeing and hearing all these other individuals and examples of people that they can relate to, that they have connections to, or they see similarities in them and they see similarities in themselves, they start to ask themselves, like, wow, like if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. And that's where you're selling, but not really selling. You're just sharing stories. And the way that this becomes more and more powerful is when you have more and more stories. Like I got a quick list here. I could rattle off a whole bunch more stories if we wanted to, because the more we share, the more it opens people's minds to what's possible. Yep. And so I'm never selling. I'm just sharing stories. And through the stories, the selling's happening, but it's not like I'm persuading or convincing or manipulating or closing or anything of that nature. It's none of that.
Always stuff. Be closing, lame. Always be teaching. Lame. I like that one better.
Totally. And that's just it. Like, so at the end of the day, this is where, you know, we do have a ton of overlap, Linz, because at the end of the day, I know that if I want to, quote, sell better, I need to help more people get results. Yep. And so as long as like my teaching is like just narrowed down and focused on like helping people make progress, everything else takes care of itself.
So good. Genius. Love it. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Stu, as always, it's such a pleasure to have you on. Like, your energy, I'm always just like, oh, it's Stu time. I get to feed off that energy. I love it. And I know a lot of people had a lot of questions, but we're getting close to the end of Stu's time. He is hosting a series of workshops that will probably answer a lot of your questions. And I'm also going to be sharing my experiences with membership sites, what I've learned from hosting successful ones and actually closing them down. And those like business decisions that I think a lot of people are probably curious of. So I will continue that conversation in the Teachers Lounge. But Stu does have a series of workshops coming up. I forgot the date. What date is it again?
April 25th, Linz. Come on.
Just kidding.
It's going to say April 25th.
I think Jamie Swanson might be making them right now as we speak. So we'll drop a link to register for that, but we have a little while, and I will carry this conversation, of course, in the Facebook group. But Stu, it's always a pleasure. And it's been so fun learning from you and getting to chat with you about this, which Tribe I know is so important to you. And I can tell it's because of the work you're doing in the world. And that's what good teachers do, man. They go get results.
Well, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for hosting me. And I want to thank everybody in your audience, because it's an audience of teachers who are sharing their wisdom, their knowledge. And I just want to say, like, I just want everybody to get real centered on the ripple effect that you are having in this world. And I want to encourage you to continue to get that in front of more and more people. And one of the best ways, and we didn't talk about this, is through a membership site. And the reason I love it as a teacher is because my relationship goes deeper with our students.
Yeah.
And I get to be with them on this journey.
Longer.
Of progress.
Yeah.
And so for me, this is like where the real joy comes, because, you know, it's we get to see the transformation happen right before our eyes. And it's true. One of the most beautiful things. And so I just want to acknowledge all the teachers in the world, because you are absolutely making a massive difference. Sometimes you see it, sometimes, more often than not, you don't get to see it. And I just want to acknowledge you because we know it's happening. And so, thank you for what you do. Thank you for how you share, and thank you for how you show up in this world. Thank you, Linz.
Thanks,
You're amazing.
Stu. Awesome.
See you, gang.
Bye.